CWS Conversations with Selwyn. Thank you for joining us this evening. And those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very special thank you. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have you join us. And every week, for those of you who are now tuning in for the first time, I invite someone to come on the show to have a conversation. I don't like to say interview. I think the whole idea of an interview is sort of rigid. I like the fluidity and the organicness of a conversation. Um, and this is so that I can listen to someone or have a conversation with someone about their journeys and how are they using their gifts and talents to help others. How are they contributing in a positive way to humanity? You see, I believe that we all have a story to tell. And what is a better place to tell your story, or a better way to tell your story when your listeners can be inspired and enlightened, but more importantly, young people can be encouraged to step beyond their limitations, especially when they hear how you might have overcome a particular challenge. And I love to give this example because it makes so much sense and it makes the analogy sort of easy. In that I think of a stack of dominoes or a row of dominoes standing next to each other, and you tip one over and there's a chain reaction that occurs. Um, I think of you talking to someone and or talking about your challenges, and there's a young person somewhere in the world, young man, young woman, who listen to you and recognize that they have a similar challenge and thinking, imagine if you can overcome yours, then perhaps I don't have so much of a problem. Imagine the chain reaction of events. If you were able to inspire or encourage that one person, you may not be around. Most often, we are never around to see the effects of our contribution, of our love, our gifts to someone. And this is why it is so important to give unconditionally and give in spite of. We are never around. Most of the times, we are not around, but it can have, and it usually does have, a chain reaction of events. What you may transform or encourage the next leader of the free world. You may encourage the next just geneticist. We have no idea. And that is why it is so important to step beyond ourselves and to give unconditionally and to give without expectations. I know that is difficult. Our humanity, sometimes the way we were brought up, we expect someone to say at least thank you. But detach from that. Detach from that expectation. And you'll be so well rewarded in your spirit, knowing that you've given to someone and you don't really care whether they turn around and give back something to you or so on. But anyway, we have a packed show tonight. Our guest is one of the gems of our soil, Guenet Gittens Roberts. And so we'll take a break and I'll introduce you to her when I return. Excuse me, that may not always have consistent internet access. We're and my guest is here, so I'll take a short break. Okay, so we're not quite back yet. Sorry about the interruption, but this is what happens sometimes. And the beautiful thing about CWS, it's community, and I am very grateful for your patience. Very thankful for that. We have a slight video problem. Gwyneth is broadcasting or transmitting through Skype, and so there was a slight interruption, and so she's trying to fix that. So I ask for your patience once more, and I will take a break and play some music in the meanwhile. And I hope you enjoy that until she gets this sorted out. Thank you. Okay, we are back. Thank you for your patience. Thank you so very much. The lovely lady next to me is Mrs. Guenet Gittens Roberts. Gwenet, good night.
Good night. Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. It is indeed a pleasure. And as they say, when something is going to go wrong, it will go wrong. But everything happens for the best. That's what we were taught growing up, right?
True. And after all that preparation,
It just tells me we're going to have a beautiful show. And again, thanks. Thank you for being here. I feel compelled to try something different tonight. I am not going to read your bio
okay.
because I want our listeners to learn about you as I learned about you during this conversation. I want them to be as amazed and inspired as I was when I learned of the remarkable work you're doing with your publication, your contribution to Central Florida, but most importantly, why I think of amazing, the word amazing, when I think of you. So is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Once you're going to be doing the talking, not me.
We shall see. We shall see. First, let me start by saying congratulations on celebrating the third year of publishing your news magazine, Caribbean American Passport. What does this
Yes.
milestone mean to you?
Oh my goodness. 3 years, I can't believe we're here already, actually. 3 years have gone by just remarkably quickly. Um, I tell people every month it's like giving birth, pushing that paper out, getting it. Every month I think I can't do this, and then it just comes together. So every single month is always a new creation, and it's always an arduous task. So, now we're coming into it just after we just finished. So if you had asked me this a week ago, I would have said, so, nah, I can't do it again. I don't know how, but we just got the issue out. So I'm on top of the world again. But it's been good. It's been a learning experience. I've had no background in publishing.
Hmm.
I just knew what I wanted to see, what I wanted to represent the Caribbean community. And I put all of that together and went to a printer and said, could you do this for me? And they said, nobody's asked us to do it this way, but sure, we really could. And then, just knowing it was my creation, and it was exactly what I wanted, and having people respond to it in the way that they have,
Hmm.
that's been tremendously just reassuring and uplifting.
And saying that, who would you like to acknowledge for encouraging you to stay the course?
I would really say I have a couple of friends at the very beginning of the process who just, people don't realize if you put an idea out there
Hmm.
and you put it out there in the universe to the right people who are actually cheerleaders for you, instead of them, shutting you down, what they'll actually do is push you and push you and push you. And I would say the three cheerleaders I really had at the very beginning were Sam, my husband, a friend of mine, Marcia Miller, and another friend, Sandra Fatme. And once I put it out to them, they never let me forget that I had that idea. And they actually bugged me into doing it because what I was doing before was just blogging. So I took basically the same concept of blogging, telling people about what was happening in the Caribbean community and what was coming up, and I turned that concept into a newspaper. So without them, and actually my graphic artist, who is a 65-year-old hippie woman, throwback from the 60s, 70s, where she's always been in marches and rallies and passionate about all kinds of rights. Jan, she's been the strongest force behind me, because at first she kept saying, look, you could even just do this by pulling content from the web, but somebody needs to do this. So those are the four people, most of all. Throughout the journey, though, we've had a lot of help from a lot of other people, but those are the people who first pushed, because I put the idea out into their hands and said, what do you guys think? Do you think I could do it? And they're like, you're in your lane. That's what you need to do.
Thank you. And for our listeners in the rest of the world, this is cyberspace. It's a web TV, so we have listeners all over the world. Where were you born and raised?
Georgetown, Guyana, on Church Street.
Church Street.
Yep, very proud of that. Went to Stella Maris and then Queens College. Georgetown, born and raised.
So, what kind of games do you remember playing as a child?
Oh gosh, I was not the sports type. So that's a sore topic for me in my family, of course, with all the Robertses and their hockey and their commitment to sports. What I actually did growing up was horse riding. I used to go to the police compound.
Mm-hmm.
Great trainer Mac, and so I think I had a bit of an unconventional. I don't know many Guyanese who did horse riding throughout their youth, but that was my thing. That was what I did, and that was the only sport. I played hockey for probably 1 week. The ball hit my shin and I gave up. Not a sports person at all.
I don't blame you about giving up on that. You are owner of GGR Marketing and Public Relations and publisher of Caribbean American Passport News Magazine. If you weren't a businesswoman, a publisher, what would you want to be?
Businesswoman and publisher. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's it.
Even if I won the lottery tomorrow, and we've had this conversation a lot. Basically, if I weren't doing, if I had nothing else to do, if I had all the money in the world, I would actually just expand a newspaper. That would be what I would do. I'm very passionate that the Caribbean community should have a voice, mm-hmm. and it should have a voice that reflects the true diversity, the beauty, the creativity of our people. And so I would expand it. You'd see Caribbean Passport, UK version. You'd see it everywhere that you find Caribbean people. You'd see the Dubai version everywhere. So that's exactly what I'd be doing.
Woman, businesswoman, successful. Don't believe in giving up when you have an idea.
No.
Who were the women you admired when you were growing up?
Definitely, I would have to say my mother. Mm-hmm. Same concept. Businesswoman throughout the day, and then by the time she got home in the evenings, she had time for us. Still very busy person. But on Sundays, it was especially our time. On weekends, it was especially our time. My parents worked throughout the week, but on the weekends, they had time for their staff and to do stuff with us as a one unit group. So I grew up actually in a business family. Marketing and public relations has been in my background because my parents owned a screen printing and ad agency in Guyana. Wow. And that's just something they did on the weekends. We'd do stuff with family. We'd do just long weekends of nothing. And it was wonderful. We'd go to the seawall. We'd have coconut water. So my mom just showed me that you could balance both, mm-hmm. at a time when maybe a lot of women weren't balancing both. And she balanced both very well.
This is kind of like unfair to ask you this question, but I want you to tell it. How would you say your parents influenced you?
Oh, my parents probably the greatest influence in my life, and that's just because I've seen them through good, bad struggles. When I was growing up, they had, as I said, a screen printing company. They have had a garment factory and a woodworking factory. A lot of people who are from Guyana might know of Glee Toys. That's our company, or NC Screen Printers. We do all of the school badges. We do all of the school badges in Guyana. At the time, we did screen print them, and they've worked hard all their lives. They came from nothing and started an ad agency, and so they've been a big influence in my life. Just number one, from my mom, the commitment of working hard, but still having time for family.
Hmm.
From my dad is really not settling for being mediocre and always to keep striving. And I think I was very blessed that I was able to work with them. So from a very early age, I was crafting marketing plans for people and actually going on sales calls. So I was working within the company. So, I know how to sew. I know how to, print, screen print, all of those things, graphic design, had to do all of those things. I was one of the only children. I was the first. I was firstborn, and I was one of the only kids who worked that closely with my parents. And I think it's what I was able to just fall back on because what I do now is very much based on what I learned at their feet.
Wow. I want
Yeah.
to ask you a technical, for some technical assistance. Is your camera off to your right?
Yes.
Okay, so because you seem to be looking off to your right, so if you can look to your left, like straight,
Okay.
that's it.
Is that better?
Yeah, yeah. I want everybody. Yes, that's much better, much better.
Okay.
Um, from whom among women do you draw your inspiration or any inspiration?
Oh, I definitely look. I'm also president of the Caribbean American Chamber of
Hmm.
Commerce of Central Florida, and we've set up a women's group. And there is nothing like the energy of women to recharge your batteries, especially the right group of women. And I have around me just an amazing group of women. I'll start from the chamber side of it. The previous president of the chamber her name's Carol Singh. She's Guyanese. And what she taught me was how to just, put others above yourself. If you find somebody that you're going to mentor, and she really was a good mentor to me, just allow me to flex my own muscle and do things my way, and just having that strength and capacity to not have her ego come into play, but have me learn and grow and just step back to allow me my freedom. That's the biggest lesson I've learned from her. She's been the biggest influence in my life, I think, other than my mom. And she steps in for my mom when my mom's not in the US, just as a backbone in terms of, are you working too hard? Are you really balancing home and work? You're looking a little stressed. Is everything okay? So she's been a great resource, again, both professionally and personally. And I have a ton of just girlfriends around me who I have met along the way that just really support everything I do with the paper, everything I do just event wise. But I think that's also because, we do a lot of our stuff with integrity, and people have begun to realize that over the years. So we got a lot of support from women. Um, Additionally, there are just a couple of people who, I'm not necessarily the most aggressive person. Doesn't mean I'm not aggressive, but I'm not outwardly aggressive. And I just have some people who really just stand up for me, and they will fight to the end. And these are people that I've developed friendships with just along the way with the paper and the being within the Caribbean American Chamber. So it's too numerous to name, but I can't tell you how important just women relationships are, and good ones. But the most recent one would be Dr. Antonia Novella, who is the first female Surgeon General of the United States. She's a Latina. She's from Puerto Rico. And oh my goodness, this woman just blows your mind. Her advice is just about being honest, being true to your roots. Think that some of the things that she has said are, without your culture, you're like a tree without roots. You really can't stand. Another important lesson that I just learned from her was really not to be ashamed of who you are, and to be your most authentic self, because you were born an original. Why die a copy? And it's something that, as a Caribbean American person, I've struggled with here, because I'm very proud of the fact that I'm from the Caribbean. But what I found was that a lot of Caribbean people try to hide the fact that they're Caribbean. And so I had to fight against that, even within our own Caribbean community
Hmm.
here. And she has just inspired me to just start that fight again. and to keep going with it, because the culture is beautiful and we're beautiful people because we come from that culture, and we shouldn't be ashamed and we shouldn't hide it. So she's right now at the top of just one of the people that I look up to.
Wow. I don't know if this is an appropriate metaphor, but I think of a flame or a fire with many different logs in it, helping to fuel that fire. And so you are fortunate and you are blessed. I'm asking you some questions about your youth because I want to go into your timeline a little bit. And
Okay.
the next question I have is, what activities were you involved in during high school?
I did the high school in Ghana, and then I also did, after I did CXCs, I did a year of high school in America as well. So I'll probably give you a little bit of both.
Hmm.
In Ghana, as I said, horse riding was a major one for me. Outside of that, really, I was extremely social. The fairs on the weekend, parties on the weekend. Can't say that it was, books alone. That was a large part of my experience.
Hmm.
And I just treasure and loved growing up in Guyana because I had a blast. I developed a lot of friendships, that are still going up to now and still very strong. But it really was a lot of partying. In America, I actually, when I got here for high school, it was a little bit more of a lonely experience. And so, I'd always been smart, to get into QC, you have to have a certain level of academics, but I was always just a coaster. But coming up to America with no friends, no real social life, went straight to the top of my class. And I was also publisher of my school newspaper there. And so that's something that's when I really developed a passion for publishing and media, because I was actually doing all layup, taking it to the printer, getting it printed, all of that stuff in my year of high school in America. So that I had two different experiences. Didn't really go out at all
What a
during that
contrast.
year, but just concentrated on the newspaper and academics.
And talking about publishing and stories and so on, what books or stories did you enjoy as a child?
As a child,
Yeah.
oh gosh, Enid Blyton, and I still have them up to now.
What?
I do. I
Wow.
have Mr. Pink Whistle. I have all of those books. Love those books. Um, uh, you know, Nancy Drew, definitely. And then growing up, had to do those stories, the Old Man of the Sea, the Pearl, the Crucible, all of those stuff. Really enjoyed them. Animal Farm was a big favorite of mine,
Hmm.
and I actually had my kids read that when they were younger, and they just loved it, which was amazing to me because when they were 12 and 13, and they loved Animal Farm. So I think that those are some of the ones. To Kill a Mockingbird was a good one for me as well. But I was an avid reader, so I read everything. At 18, I had already finished the whole Jason Bourne series. With the whole Michael Ludlum with the Jason Bourne series. I
Hmm.
had already finished all of them. I read anything and everything.
I think I don't want to date myself there, but well, it doesn't matter. I think when we were growing up, not having television was a real blessing in disguise,
Yeah.
and because we read and we challenged each other, and I mean, well, we challenged each other with what we read. You if you
Hmm.
come on the corner to hang, you have to tell us if you read the last Ludlum or Eric Van Lo's Batter and all these kinds of stuff. But
Yeah.
this is not about me here tonight. I just wanted to underscore that point about reading. Um,
Yeah, definitely reading was, I didn't do sports, but reading was my thing.
I like that.
Reading was my thing.
What are or who inspired you to want to be a publisher?
Let's see. I was actually in real estate, and the economy wasn't doing well, of course, as you know. Most real estate agents, saw just a tanking of their careers. And I thought, well, I'd been involved in public service, just very active in the community, even during the years that I was in real estate. And I was actually on the side helping out someone who was actually doing a newspaper right here in Orlando. And when his newspaper folded, he kept trying to come back, but it wasn't coming back. And it was a Caribbean newspaper. And I saw that there were things that, number one, I thought should have been done differently. I mean, it was nice, but I found that most newspapers here focused on what was happening in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And I thought they were actually missing out on a very, very, very big market right here within the diaspora with what was happening to the people of the diaspora and the issues that they were facing and the challenges that they had, the victories they were having. There was nothing that was being published about Caribbean American people here. And I keep saying Caribbean American because we are American, we're Caribbean, we're both. We're no longer just Guyanese, we're no longer just Jamaicans, wherever you're from. You're definitely defined by the experience of living in America. And so we are Caribbean American, and nobody was writing about that. It was always just about news from home. For me, I wanted to see what my peers were doing because I was really making a life here in America. So when that paper folded and there was nothing, I also felt that it was very important to actually have a voice in the community and a voice in the community that we could trust. Because a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of small newspapers are not necessarily done by local people. They're actually owned by large companies, and the information you might be getting, is not necessarily authentic. The other thing is that a lot of people sell advertorials, and people don't necessarily know that what they're reading sometimes in some of the smaller newspapers are paid content. And I didn't want to do that. So when I started the paper, Sam and I looked at it, and we really decided that one of the main things is we'd grow slowly. We wouldn't do advertorials so that people could trust our content. And that's what we wanted, to really set up something that was about the people here, and it was a true voice. So like it or not is my voice. I don't have investors because like it or not is my voice. At the end of the day, is my decision. And as I say to people, if you don't like what you're reading, you have the choice to not read it. But that's the bottom line for me with regards to what I'll put in the paper. I will not be dictated to about what we could put. And I'm grateful that we don't have to be, because that's something a lot of journalists face.
I like that. And now that we're talking about the papers, this started in 2010. You and Sam launched this monthly magazine. The publication printed 5,000 copies monthly and was distributed in Central Florida. And also emailed to another 10,000 online viewers. That's a lot. Go ahead.
Well, what it is that, remember, I started by blogging. So we really had a large database of people who were reading my stuff online. For some reason, I'd always kept my lists, and I was doing all of these events. I was doing Caribbean Business Expos and stuff like that. So I would just keep accumulating those names. And when we started the newspaper, we actually had all those people become an active part of the naming of the paper, the type of content we would have. It was very interactive. Actually, when we first named the paper, I wanted it to be Creole Lifestyle News Magazine. But when I put it out there, everybody hated the name just because they felt like it represented just the Haitian culture. I had to try to explain that Creole really didn't mean that, but that was the perception. And so we had to put a few feelers out, and we came up with Caribbean American Passport, which is, the passport to the Caribbean American community. And then that was well received. So, we started 5,000 print copies, because what we did is we just started as we could afford it.
Right.
5,000 print, and then we started with a smaller size so that it was whatever our advertising could afford. That's what we did. And we wanted something, as I said, a more upscale publication. So if you actually see the print edition, you'll realize, we have a better quality paper, and it's trimmed, and it's stapled, and the font is larger. All of those things cost more, so it took us a little while to grow, but we wanted a certain quality.
And in one year, first year,
Mm-hmm.
you were voted what is it?
A
Best
favorite,
Caribbean news
yeah,
outlet, best Caribbean news outlet by Jamaicans.com.
yes.
What did that measure of success mean to you? First as a young publisher and as a woman, but more importantly as a black woman. What did that mean to you?
Well, really, it said that what we had envisioned and what we wanted. A lot of times you could think that people might be receptive to something,
Hmm.
but then for it to get out there and it to be so completely different than anything that was out there, and then to be so well received, that was great, because it said that my vision of the paper was what more people wanted, but nobody had listened to them, or nobody had ever thought that it could work. So that validation was really great, I must say. And then it also meant that this paper was never meant to be a paper for the Guyanese community, or just the Jamaican or the Trinidadian. So the fact that the crossover appeal was there from the very beginning, that was great for me as well, because we take pains to make sure that it's reflective of the diversity of the Caribbean, and that it's not just one island, one country, or one religion. We definitely take pains to ensure we showcase the diversity of the Caribbean.
I listened to you talk about his papers and your journey in publishing and so on, and I have this question: how would you describe your relationship with this magazine? And the reason why I'm asking this, it's like a painter may find a favorite brush, a guitarist a particular guitar, and et cetera, and et cetera. You know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
What is your relationship with this magazine like? How would you
It
define
feels
it?
as though it's a baby every single month. It's a new creation. Um, I have a lot of fun with it in one aspect, but it's a I take it exceedingly seriously in another. We've done a variety of different color covers. For instance, we've done covers where we just put art. Um, and I've said to established publishers, "Oh, we're a news magazine," and people said, "Oh, there's the established journalists who have studied, of course, have said there's nothing like a news magazine." And I said, "You know what? People aren't reading newspapers; they're reading magazines. Magazines are way too costly to print, so I printed a news magazine
I
because
like it.
that's what people want to read, and that's what I could afford to do." And so I've just decided that we're doing it our way, my way.
Uh,
And the thing is that when I put different voices in there, if I've tried it, I've actually had more established journalists write for me, and we've gotten calls immediately where people have said, "The voice in your paper sounds different. I don't like it." And so now we're very strict with our writers in that we want content, but we want it simplified. Write it the way you would speak it, because that's what our readers want to
hmm.
hear. And so now I'm really very, very confident about what our readers want. And I have no hesitation saying it. I don't care if I didn't study journalism, don't care if I don't have 30 years of experience behind me. We know what people want to see and read, and we're doing it. And we get a lot of feedback. The most interesting thing is that we get feedback from, we've got Muslim Indian men reading the editorials, and it's connecting with them. African American people from the wider American community who are reading the paper, and it's connecting with them. And so that really says a lot to me. And so, again, if an article doesn't suit me, doesn't go in. If somebody tries to dictate, like for instance, we were at a point where we were being distributed in a lot of churches, and people pick up the magazine, the newspaper, and they actually put it out for themselves in churches and stuff like that. And somebody came back and said, "Well, you guys were totally thrown out of the church." And I said, "Why?" "Well, because you had a girl in a carnival costume in there. So if you don't put people in carnival costumes inside, we could keep you in the churches." And I said, "Well, thanks, but no thanks," because really and truly, A good friend of mine said this: in the Caribbean, culture trumps religion. And so carnival is part of our culture. And I'll go with that before I try to, make this
Talk,
into something that is
talking
not
about that.
uniquely Caribbean.
Talking about that, what kind of subjects, content are you focusing on?
We do our staples are actually a column from a local journalist here who some people call it the bash in our governor column.
Hmm.
It really just talks about what's happening in the state of Florida.
Mm.
And, I usually have the opportunity to choose from him two articles, one about what's happening in the larger government, or one, where our governor has done some misstep. And frankly, our governor keeps misstepping. So that column has almost become a fixture just about the missteps of our governor. Because I think it's important for people to, that's really the only part of the paper that's probably a little politicized. Outside of that, we're really not politicized. But we want people to be aware of what the governor of Florida feels about immigrants, about just about everything, about the president. So we really keep that top of the mind for people. Then we've got another column that is written by Nichelle Hastings, and that one is leading ladies in the community. And so that just goes behind the scenes, looks at a businesswoman or just anyone who's doing something positive. And that person does not have to be Caribbean American, because we're in Central Florida. And the paper has actually become a fixture within the community in Central Florida. So it's not just about the Caribbean people, because we actually live in I try to say this all the time, we live in a Caribbean America, we live in an American society.
Hmm.
So as Caribbean people, we've got to be a part of both. So that column covers just anybody that's interesting, any woman that's dynamic and that's juggling a lot and making it work and doing it successfully. So there's that. And then I like to do something just a little bit from the Caribbean, but it's a lot of times it's fun. And that's usually brought in by Bevan Springer out of New York. I think he's out of New York, where he just does something where just, quotes from the Caribbean. So we're never, as I said, going to focus really on the Caribbean, but we always have something in there. When there are anniversaries, though, independence anniversaries, we do an entire feature from with a message from that island. So Trinidad and Jamaica just celebrated their 51st anniversaries. We had the message from the Jamaica's PM in the August issue, and then the September's issue had a message from the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So that's something you'll always find when there's an independence anniversary, because we at least use those opportunities to do a little bit about the island, maybe a little bit of history,
Okay.
and then a message.
I want to go to the chat room for a second. I guess I should have gone a little earlier. Patrick said, "Well said," and that could have been when you were answering or talking about school. I hope he comes back and explain what he meant by "well said." I'm sorry about that, Patrick. Carol asked, "What do you read for pleasure now?" And DSACCB asked, "Are there news articles, stories, section from and or about Caribbean Americans outside of Orlando?"
All right, I'll start with the one about reading.
Yes.
I am actually a reader who gets into reading so deeply that in the last 3 years, I've had to stop reading anything that truly sucks me in. And those people who are really desperate readers understand. You could really get sucked in. And so I have dumbed down my reading. Let's put it that way, because I can't afford to get caught up in a book anymore. So my reading has been really more about motivational, books like Who Moved My Cheese, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that kind of stuff. As you could see behind me, this is my bookshelf, and it's made up of just a variety of different kinds of books. But I've definitely changed my reading styles. If I want to listen, if I really want to get caught up in a book, I do it on audio tape now.
Hmm.
And so one of my favorites has been The Pillars of the Earth. And I have another one on my iPad right now. I think something but the Seven Seeds. And it just talks about changing your, living well and living with character and dignity and treating people fairly and meditating, and how that influences your business and your life. So that's what I do when I want to do anything serious, because then I could listen to it while I'm actually in the car, or I'm actually working on my computer. That's how I get my reading done now.
And
But I've put myself on sabbatical from reading.
the SACB's question: are there any news articles or stories from and or about Caribbean Americans outside of Orlando?
Definitely. We've right now we've gone statewide with our distribution. So we definitely have stuff about people from the wider, Florida area, but we always still do, if our attention where somebody has done something very remarkable, we definitely put it in. There was a retired soldier who was just sent back to Trinidad and Tobago as the ambassador. That was carried in last month's issue. He has no connection to Florida. There's also a young guy, and you might know Sharon Lee from Guyana. Um, Her husband is from Haiti. They have a young son who was studying pre-med and took a break to DJ, and he's doing wonderfully at it. And so we did a feature on him. Um, we've done definitely features on different people. There's also the Guyanese doctor who developed the cure for HIV for AIDS. That was featured on our cover a couple of months ago. So we definitely run, if something comes up where there's somebody of Caribbean origin doing something major, yep, we definitely run it. Definitely run it. Colin Powell has been just a favorite person of mine, where I'm always quoting him, talking about his life story in the magazine. Just because I feel he's real inspiration for immigrants, and that's something that we're focusing on. We don't run anything negative about Caribbean people. We feel like there's a lot of other places out there that do that, and there's nothing really that's aimed at uplifting our people, and that's what we're focused on. So anytime there's something remarkable being done, and believe me, Caribbean people do a lot of remarkable things, we do try to at least put some focus on it in the paper.
All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, I'm going to ask some questions. I like to call them rapid fire questions
Whoa,
to get
okay.
some rapid fire answers, and only because there is so much to you, Gwinnett, and I want to bring out all these facets in
All
this
right.
short space of time that we have. So let's take a quick break.
Okay.
We are back with the lovely Guenet Gittens Roberts. Gwinnett, what's the secret to assembling a good story for your publication?
One of the biggest secrets to assembling a good story is really having it have, first of all, speaking simply. It must have a hook. It must be interesting because Caribbean people like to just. It must have sometimes a bit of humor. Our readers tend to like to have stuff with a bit of humor. It must not be written in any kind of dictatorial sense. That's not something our readers are comfortable with. And we keep it simple. Send us some great photos as well, and it will be in more than likely, and especially if it's timely.
How do you believe your love and passion for publishing connect with your readers?
You know what? Every issue, I just do what is relevant to me, what is top of mind at the time. I write my editorial as the very last thing that I write, and I don't look at it again. I send it either to Sam or to my sister for them to edit, because it's just whatever really I'm feeling the most passionate about at that moment is what goes into the paper, as the editorial is the very last thing I send. But the paper of itself comes from whatever is going on at that moment. So again, if like we had one issue where we had Ramadan on the Teal Strip, and then I think we had the president of Haiti visits, and he was speaking at the NAACP convention. And I can't remember what we had on the bottom. Oh, the Jamaica's 50th anniversary, and the fact that the local Jamaican Association bought a building. Because I'm around and I make it my duty to be around in so many communities, I'm active in the Jamaican community. I'm active in the Trinidadian, active in the Guyanese, the Barbadian, and we're reaching, and definitely the Haitian community. We're reaching out to the Latin community, so we're getting a lot more active in the Hispanic chamber and the Hispanic community. I get a good feel for what's happening and what's top of mind in those communities. Or, what has happened is if somebody that I don't know about but is very important to the people in that community has died. Let's say somebody important died in Trinidad and Tobago. You'd find that I get emails from some of my friends saying, are you going to carry content about this month? So that's how we cherry pick what's happening. And so the cover actually comes at the very last minute. It's whatever is most important at the time. And that's really how the content of the paper is developed.
I have two quick questions about the cover. One, how do you decide the title for the covers? And the second one is, do the writers get a say on the cover? As quick as possible.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question really well.
Oh, sorry. The second question is, do the writers get a say on what the cover looks like? And
no.
No. Okay, good. And the first one, how do you decide the title for the cover?
The cover is really a work of art between me and my graphic artist. And sometimes it's, like for Black History Month, we always do a cover where we come up with some sort of art that's symbolic of just all the significant icons in the Black community. Similarly with our last cover for Women's History Month, we did the same thing. With October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're already planning a pink cover.
Oh, that should be
so, as I said, because it's our paper, we do whatever we want. So it's a lot of fun deciding what we're going to be doing. So we already know it's going to be pink. That's as much as we know.
So how would you say being a mother influences the stories you publish?
I actually wanted my kids to be proud of the fact that they were from the Caribbean. And I had sensed that there was a real disconnect for them here because they were not seeing any positive Caribbean people. They weren't seeing any images of positive Caribbean people. Whenever there was a story about somebody from Jamaica or Guyana on the news, it was always negative. It was always that there was a shooting outside of a nightclub, and that was when they would pull in that, it's a Caribbean place or something like that, and that was all they were seeing. Or they would see the flyers for events, and that would have somebody in a string bikini and their boobs hanging out. And I really just thought there's really way more to the Caribbean than this. And I at least had the luxury of growing up in such a diverse, multiracial, multi-religious society, and I thought it was such a bonus for me. But my kids didn't have that; they didn't know of that Caribbean, and I wanted to expose them to it. And so that's where that they have been a strong push behind me showcasing the diversity the Caribbean comes from. I want them to know the Caribbean is made up of many different people. It's not just black, it's not just Indian. There are white people there, there's Portuguese, there's Chinese. And so we actually go out to, the Asian festivals here. We take boots at those. We go to the Hispanic events. We go to the Haitian Creole events. Jamaican, Trinidadian, Anansi festivals. We try to be a part of all of those things so that we showcase that for them here. Orlando has a huge Pagua festival with thousands of kids who come out, and it's mainly children who come out, and they bring their friends, and you can see that they bring friends from school because they're not Caribbean kids, and these kids just enjoy Pagua. So my kids as well, they have a blast at Pagua. Wow. And even when I take my staff to work the Pagua events, and they're not in any way Caribbean, it's the best time of their lives, and I'm happy to be able to introduce them to that. I also work with with groups that are doing Diwali as well, and they do the Diwali shows, but nobody does the diyas, and the way we grew up, where we drive down Sheriff Street in Georgetown, and you'd see all the houses lit up. And so that's something I'm working on this year to actually incorporate, so that the kids are actually able to really see how we celebrate our culture.
So what
during Christmas, we get to enjoy the parang parties that the Trinidadians do. So they're exposed to a Caribbean lifestyle, and they're getting the benefit of not just the Guyanese culture, but really a Caribbean culture, and it's a wonderful thing.
What do you enjoy most about publishing? Did you just summarize that in what you said?
I think it's that.
Yeah,
It's really
so.
that.
I think so.
I think it's that it allows me to showcase the Caribbean and Caribbean people in a way that celebrates them.
Wonderful.
It allows me to showcase the fact that we're not just Guyanese anymore. At least I certainly am not. I'm actually Caribbean first, and that would never have happened if I hadn't left Guyana. And so, while that's bittersweet, leaving Guyana and not being in Guyana anymore, the fact that I'm now part of something larger, and I think people underestimate the Caribbean diaspora out here, but if we were to really rally as one, the Caribbean would sit up and take notice, because I don't think the Caribbean governments are really taking notice of the diaspora that they have out here. And so I get a chance to rally that diaspora, and I get a chance for us to effect change within our communities, because we've been able to help with even introducing electoral candidates into the community. People who would not have had a platform have been able to get a platform because we were there. And so we see that we're making that difference. The other thing is just enjoying the diversity, the different events and the festivals. In Orlando, where we're from right now, we don't miss anything Caribbean. We don't miss anything Guyanese. It's all here.
Let me shift gears a little bit. As a woman, a Caribbean woman, what does it mean to be in the driver's seat of your own business, and how does it feel to be the publisher of a successful news magazine?
I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but every time I'm ready to do the newspaper, I always feel a sense of anxiety as to whether it will be enough, whether it will be that this issue has to be a good one, and I never feel as though we're there, we've done it, and we're the best, and that's it. So every time I get ready to do the paper, there's a high level of anxiety. and me wanting to do my best and me wanting to really do the best for the community. And I hope I never lose that. And I hope I never get too complacent where I feel like, we got this. We know what we're doing here. I don't want that, because I always want to be striving for perfection for the community. Outside of that, I have a father who will always be looking over my shoulder saying, well, you did good here, but did you cook for your husband today? So, there's always that in the back of my mind. And that always, I think that's something every Caribbean woman has to push back against, especially with her parents, not necessarily my husband, because he knows how to handle himself and he knows that we share responsibilities. But certainly, your parents looking over your shoulder saying, yeah, this is good, but what about your family? That's always going to be something that's there. But you know what? It's a good thing, because I find that as a Caribbean woman, I am kept in check by that. And so while we might grow, we're aware that we're growing now, but we're growing with our kids in mind. So if our growth is a little slower now because they're in high school, that's fine. They'll be off to college soon, and we'll be on check to that point. And so we'll be working slowly so that when we get to the point where they're in college and there's a lot more freedom for us as parents, we'll expand a lot more then, but we're setting up the groundwork for that. So, the fact that I have great parents in the background looking over my shoulder, it allows me to check myself, because I could get aggressive and I could get carried away with work, but they bring me back to reality. So it's a good and a bad thing. I have to listen and then not listen when I don't want to, but it does keep me in check, and I appreciate it, and it works out best for the kids.
Well, what is the most memorable compliment about your news magazine anyone has ever given you?
I would say that we've gotten it from a lot of people who I would never have thought would read the paper. That, oh my goodness, as soon as we get the paper, we read it from cover to cover. I've heard that enough times from so many different people that I know that to be true.
So saying that, why do you believe people read your news magazine?
Well, as I said, we write it the way we speak.
Gotcha.
So we make no apologies for the fact that we're Caribbean. And, we're not necessarily trying to use highfalutin English. I mean, once at least the English is good enough. Sometimes my graphic designer who's putting together says, does that really make sense? Yep. Because that's the way a Caribbean person would say it. And so that's what we do. It's not a lot of times, but we do have it in there. And then also what we've done is we've increased the size of our font so that it makes it easier for people to read. Now, those things cut down on, add space and all of that stuff. And we're very visual. So we put a lot of photos in there. And so I think all of that just makes it appealing. What I think is most important is that people read magazines, because if you look at magazines, people want to see other people. They want to see pictures. They want to see themselves in pictures. They want to read something, but it mustn't be too heavy. There must be some humor thrown in. So we use that entire combination. And I think that's why it works. And we're not heavy on any subject. I take my time, we figure it out, and we try to be very balanced so that we reflect both sides of a story.
Okay, I'm gonna go rapid fire now.
Okay,
all right.
I'm ready.
I don't know if this is a fair rapid fire question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. How do you connect with your writers?
Our writers we have a small group of writers, and I take the time to figure out with them even before they start writing for me on a monthly basis. I connect with them and let them know the kind of content that we're looking for, and if something doesn't work, then it is rejected. Like for instance, let's just talk about the religious column. The religious column came from a pastor, and at first it was just about Christianity. And I said, I cannot write just about Christianity, because the Caribbean is not just a Christian culture. So if you will mix this, and you will have something about the Hindu religion, something about Muslims, and just the diversity of religions out there, I'll carry it. And she changed her content, and her content is so loved, and she is a Jamaican pastor. So this is really outside of her realm, but she's gone out and she's actually gone to Hindu ceremonies, and has now just realized that we are more similar than we're different. And that's just one of our writers. The other one, Nichelle, Nichelle's articles are always really coming from the heart, and that's why she's a writer for us. But if something does not have that heart in it, where it's talking about what a person's struggles are and really what they do in a humanitarian way, then I let her know this article isn't the type of article that we're looking for. But send me something that we'd be happy carrying, which carries your usual heart. And she usually does that, and we carry it.
Let me go to the
So,
chat room. Hollis asked, is the newspaper online? If so, what is the link?
yes, it's online. If you go to issuu.com, and that's issuu.com, and then you do the / Caribbean American Passport, you'll be able to see all of our issues. All 36 issues are there. So it's issuu.com, Caribbean American Passport.
Okay. Um, what do you believe is the common thread that connects each of us Caribbeans?
I like to say, as Caribbean people, we're divided by water, but really not by culture. Um, we have much more in common than we would believe, and I think it's only when you come outside of whichever island you're from, or even some people come to America and they still just hang out within their community. If you just get outside of your community, you'll realize that you have so much in common with a Trinidadian and a Jamaican than you would ever realize. Just the way you're brought up, the kind of foods you eat, the kind of things you're accustomed to, the way you treat your children, or the way you've decided not to treat your children. There's so much similarities that we are really more alike than we're different. There are differences, and knowing the differences is a good way of getting along with the different communities, because, like, I found that Trinidadians speak a lot more aggressively to each other than us as Guyanese would do. A lot more Guyanese tend to be a little bit more passive aggressive, whereas Trinidadians will be very loud and out there in your face. But by the time they say something, it's over and done with. So just knowing how to deal with the different cultures. The Jamaicans, I find, are intensely loyal people, and they will fight for you if they feel that you're threatened. And so, again, as I said, I network with all of those cultures, and I find so much to love in each one. But the similarities, just in our food, the way we raise our kids, our values, they're so similar. I found even friends who have grown up in England, I'm shocked that they grew up with the same products, using the same products that we did in Guyana. Something as simple as milk powder and Milo, that you like to eat. I mean, you'll find that translates across the communities. So if you're ever looking for somebody that you want to find stuff in common with and values in common with, just look to your own Caribbean people, because it's right there.
I want to visit or examine another facet of you. 4 years ago, you formed your company to provide a means of reaching the Caribbean community in Central Florida. And even though people told you that it wasn't a big enough community to sustain a business dedicated just to the Caribbean community, you persisted.
Yeah.
It is now successful. What comes to mind are belief, confidence, even passion. What can you tell us about those qualities, and why were you so determined to establish such a business?
Well, because number one, I was actually networking outside of just my little hub. So I was never just within the Guyanese community. I was within the Jamaican, Trinidadian, Haitian, whatever. I was within all the different communities. And so I realized that people here wouldn't know what one section was doing, or the people in one area wouldn't know what the people in another area were doing. And I realized, if goodness, I mean, if we put together what we were doing, and we worked as one community, we'd really be dynamic and we'd really be strong. And one of the main things that we did to really get that going was celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month with the other organizations that are from the different islands. And what we do is we work together the entire year to put together a month of activities here in Orlando to celebrate Caribbean American Heritage Month. What that does is, when you work together with people, you really get a chance to really know them, love them, hate them, but they become your family. And that is something that we've done. And so we've been able to create a family of Caribbean American people here in Central Florida through just working hard together as one.
And talking about working together, last year, January to be precise, 2012, you were voted president of the Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce in Central Florida, and elected again this year. What is your main focus as president?
You know what? It's almost the same as the paper. It's about uplifting the Caribbean community here. It's about focusing not on the Caribbean back home, but the Caribbean American community here. One of our major focuses for the Chamber is on unity, and we've been able to really work on that. And now our focus is on really keeping the wealth that we have as a community within our community. And so we're aimed at empowering people through seminars, putting them in touch with government officials, getting them counseling before they start a business, so that they don't start a business and then lose their wealth, because that's something that was happening a lot in our community. People were doing businesses they were accustomed to in the Caribbean, not the way they should in America. And as a result, getting into something and not knowing all the rules was actually hurting a lot of our business people. Okay. And so that's a priority for us. But it really, again, goes hand in hand with with my mission for the paper. My mission as a community activist is about really galvanizing the Caribbean American community here, having them work as one, having them have one loud voice, and really the ones who have gone before and who have done well, having them be mentors for the ones who are coming behind, and strengthening the fact that our Caribbeanness, or our unique Caribbean heritage, doesn't die out with one generation. Not because a child is born here of Caribbean parents, it makes them not Caribbean. And that's a big message that we really try to push. The Hispanic community is very strong because they're Hispanic even if it's 5 generations down. And we as Caribbean people, some of us, we've got a lot of questions from a lot of young people. Well, my parents are from Jamaica, or my parents from Ghana. Does that mean I'm from the Caribbean? Of course you are, because I could tell you that there are certain things that are cooked in your house and that your parents don't like you to do sleepovers. And when I start listing the stuff, people start to laugh because there's so much similarities. I don't care which island you're from.
So what are you most proud of being from the Caribbean?
I am most proud of our diversity. I am, especially with what's happening in America right now. I think we have a unique opportunity to be able to lead discussions on race and on unity, and that we should step up and do so, because we might have a lot of issues in the Caribbean, but we've certainly learned to appreciate other cultures and other religions, and certainly to respect them. And I think that's something that we could definitely lead discussions on in America, and explain to people that, just as happened with the new Miss America, not because somebody looks Indian means that they're Arab. I mean, that's ludicrous to me. And not because somebody even might be Muslim, it means they're a terrorist. We know that because we've sat.
Arrowhead, arrowhead. I don't think you heard me. I said arrowhead.
At Eid al-Fitr celebrations in Ghana. We've sat at Hindu celebrations in Ghana, and we know these people, we know their culture, and so we can't sit around and be bystanders and not get involved. We know, and so I think we have to speak.
What surprised you most about your publication?
The way it is, the way it moves. We have very few distributors, but we have a lot of people who distribute for us that we are not even aware of. And so people have connected with the newspaper, and people take it into their churches, and they're the go-to people who take it into their churches, or they're the go-to people who take it to the elderly in the community. And the paper is in areas that we have no clue how it gets there. It's not only in Caribbean areas, it's in American areas. And we've even had the police chief of Orlando, the city of Orlando, say that, our paper is the one paper he sees everywhere, and the one paper that's for everybody. And he's born and bred in America. So when he had to really get messages out, he came to us because, again, now he has told me it's the papers at his dry cleaners. I don't know how it gets to his dry cleaners, but it's at his dry cleaners. But as I'm very fond of telling people, especially Americans, is that once you start seeing Caribbean people, it's like that story is like the ghosts, then you start seeing them everywhere. And that's something that's very true.
That said, if you were introducing someone to your news magazine and had 30 seconds to do so, what is one distinguishing feature about the publication you'd like them to leave with?
I'd like them to know that it is about the Caribbean American perspective. It's about us as Caribbean people living in an American society. And it's a hodgepodge. It's a mixture of, who we are as Caribbean people and as Americans. And so you'll always see a reflection of both sides of that. And you'll see the diversity of the Caribbean community, from Asian to Hispanic to Black to Chinese. As I said, you'll definitely see that diversity reflected in it. And it opens a lot of people's eyes.
Sorry. If you could go back and change something related to your education, your experience, your training, what would you change, and what would you do differently?
Selwyn, I do not believe in regrets. And so I think that was the first question you asked me that just drew me a blank.
Right. That's good. No, that's fine. I think earlier in the conversation, you did answer a question similar to this, in that you said, or you made a comment that if you won $1 million, you became a multimillionaire, you would still do what you're doing today. So
Yeah.
I think you have answered this. Do you have a particular practice to relieve stress if you have stress?
Yes, I actually am incredibly stressed, just because I'm not incredibly stressed, but there's a capacity for incredible stress because the phone rings off the hook. And so there are a lot of people listening who know they cannot really reach me. But what I do is I really disconnect, and now that when I'm home in the evenings, I'm home. I don't look at the phone. I take time out for myself, and at least one day a week, it's really a day for doing nothing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And then the final thing is, I've decided that July and December are my months off, and that's just family time and reflection time. And I found that really I've gotten the most growth in those 2 months when I've done nothing. So I will tell people meditation and self-reflection really works.
And what is one of your favorite quotes, quotes that inspires you?
I would say now I'd be paraphrasing, but there's a good quote out there about service, and that a life without service in some form or the other is really not a great life lived. And I really believe that. I believe that you should be given back in some way. And I believe that the most interesting people are people who are at least passionate about something. So you show me a person who doesn't have a lot of money, but they've got a cause, and I will gravitate to that person much more readily than somebody who, is just sitting down and is not committed to anything. So just having a passion. I mean, you could be in a day-to-day job, but as a friend of mine says, it takes about the same time to be miserable or to be happy. So make that choice to make yourself happy.
So what do you look forward to doing on weekends?
On weekends, I do so many events and I go to so many parties that, would you believe, I look forward to staying home now.
I like that. And finish this sentence for me. The best part of Sunday evening is?
The best part of Sunday evenings is that it comes after Sunday mornings, and Sunday mornings is when we do our breakfast with the family at home at the table. And I can't do the evenings because I might have an event, but I've continued my mother's tradition by at least having a full breakfast, that if it's at least one day a week that I'm going to cook, it's going to be Sunday morning, and we're going to sit down as a family and chat and talk and laugh.
What would you like to be remembered for, Guenet?
I would like to be remembered for being a great mother, a great parent, and for definitely raising the profile of the Caribbean American community.
And so what is next for Guenet Gittens Roberts?
What is next for me? It would be world domination with Caribbean American Passport News Magazine.
I like that. And if you're at liberty to tell, this is kind of a similar question, but you can give it your slant. If you're at liberty to tell, what project are you working on now?
Right now, we're getting a lot of requests for working on candidate for the marketing company, working on election campaigns. That is something different. It says that we've got a lot of community clout and power, and we're weighing it very seriously to see if we want to go down that road.
Okay.
We actually have some great clients already in our database. Caribbean Airlines is one of our clients. We do their marketing in Central Florida. And we're focusing only now on Caribbean brands. We actually had a lot of different marketing clients, but we've shut those down and we're only focusing on Caribbean brands. So anyone who actually wants to reach the Caribbean community, we're open to that, but we're focusing on mainly raising the profile of Caribbean brands. So we really have to take our time to see if we're going to go into the election marketing.
And Guenet, the last question, everybody gets asked this question. What makes you laugh out loud?
I would say we have, as I was saying earlier, we have a Women of Wisdom group within the chamber. And every time we do an event, and those ladies get together, we have a wonderful speaker. It's always some powerful woman within the community who comes out to speak. But I'll tell you, just those ladies getting together just after that event and us sitting back after the event is over and having a drink and just talking about our husbands and our lives and our kids is just the best thing. And it just recharges me. And we go forward and we all leave, and we're all busy professional women and we don't have much time, but just that hour after the event that we sit back and we just enjoy and laugh about nothing is the best. And so any woman who doesn't have some good girlfriends to just relax with once every couple of months is missing out.
Well, we've come to that time. I mean, I went a little bit after the time because we had a little snafu in the beginning, but I enjoyed this conversation, Guenet. And before I close, can you take us out with some words of wisdom?
Some words of wisdom. Okay, well, I'll say this. We're all Creoles, and that's why I was actually thinking at first of naming the paper Creole Lifestyle News Magazine. And we have to realize that we're no longer products of Guyana or Jamaica, Trinidad, as we say. The fact is, if we've lived in Jamaica and then we moved to New York and then moved to Florida, we're all hybrids of all those little pieces of culture and just values and ways of operating. And we need to recognize that. And we need to live and enjoy our lives wherever we've chosen to live them, and not just work with this idea in the back of our heads of headed back home. We need to make friends and form relationships right here where we live and enjoy this time. And if at the end of it we choose to go back home, then, it wasn't that we just lived and worked here in America just to then finally enjoy life at the end of our life. Enjoy life while you're living it right here as Caribbean American people.
That was so well said. Wonderful. DSACCB said awesome and impressive. Great guest.
Oh,
When
thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. Thank you for, I should say, having such a sense of humor in the beginning of the show. I thought it was going to be fun, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I love
I
the
did too.
answers you
Thank
did.
you.
Good. I am so glad, and I like what you're doing in Florida. I love what you're doing. I think it is very important for us to find those common threads that
Yes,
sort of bind us and explore them and exploit them. Um,
absolutely.
I
And
think
so, when I invite you to come see us in June when we're celebrating Caribbean Heritage Month, because we're building something here that's going to be as big as Caravana in time.
thank you. I will
Um,
come.
so,
I
please come
definitely
down in
will.
June.
I definitely will. And again, thank you very much, and have a very, very good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Suffer the little children to come unto me. Every day, more than 30,000 children around the world die of preventable diseases. More than 300,000 children are being used in war as child soldiers. Lord have mercy. A child should be loved. A child should be held. A child should be clean. A child shouldn't smell. A child shouldn't go to bed hungry at night. A child should be taught wrong from right. A child should learn to say thanks and please. A child shouldn't suffer from preventable disease. A child is a fruit that shouldn't be picked before it's time to do